the April 15th meeting of the Amherst School Committee to order. Actually, before I do that, I think I'm going to try recording this, even though Amherst Media is streaming it, just to make sure that possibly I can't record it. Recording. Options. Okay, all right, I'm going to start recording. There we go. Okay, calling the Amherst School Committee meeting to order at 6:32. We are all remote tonight, so we're going to do a roll call attendance. Sarah Marshall?
Here.
Irv Rhodes?
Here.
Deb Leonard?
Here.
Bridget Hines?
Here.
And Jennifer Shao is here. Our first order of business is public comment. If there are any members of the public present who would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand function. Which should be on the bottom of your screen. If you're on a mobile device, you might need to tap to see the raise hand function and raise your hand. If you can't raise your hand, you can turn on your camera and wave or something if you'd like to make a public comment. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand for public comment. So we will go on to the next agenda item, which is the chair's update. I just have a brief
point of order. I'm sorry, Jennifer. There was no written comment.
Right, yes, there were no written comments. There were no emailed comments, and there were no voicemails.
Okay.
So
Quiet week.
went tonight, yes. So just a few things from me. Let's see. There were two other agenda items on the agenda for tonight that we're going to delay to a future joint meeting of the Amherst, Pelham, and the regional school committees. And those are an update on the Welcoming Schools Initiative and an update on the Student Opportunities Act's goals and progress towards those goals. We figured since those two initiatives cover all three districts, we should have them at a joint meeting to be super efficient. Dr. Z and I have been talking about some other future agenda items just so that everyone knows and to get this out there, having a public forum on the 6th grade move to the middle school, discussing redefining the catchment areas for the 2 elementary schools when the new school opens, and thoughts about naming the new school, like what will we name it? What will we call it? So those are some items for future agendas. That's my chair's update. Are there any school committee member announcements or subcommittee updates?
The elementary school building committee met. I came in at the tail end of the meeting because I was attending another event. Things are going well as far as I can tell. And as far as has been reported, they're planning, they've penciled in a topping off ceremony for May 23rd. But they have to make sure it's still penciled in. I couldn't quite follow what they need to do to firm it all up. But I think they're just making sure the non-local people, like the representatives, are available for that.
Great. Awesome. It's getting exciting. I drive by it very often.
Yeah.
You can now see it because it's 3 stories above the building in front of it. So it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sarah.
Yeah, not a report since unfortunately I missed the last meeting of the Special Education Parents Advisory Council, but I have a question for the chair. I read in the paper that you and Deb did meet or going to meet with the League of Women Voters.
Oh,
Did that happen? I would love. I was surprised. So if there's something you can tell us about that,
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. I should have informed the committee that the league invited me to come to a one of the Judy Brooks conversations sessions to talk about the school budget, and then I invited Deb to come along as well. Again, I apologize. I'm trying to make it a point to let you all know when I do anything that represents the committee. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm sorry I didn't let you know. We basically talked about where we currently are with the elementary budget as well as the regional budget, where we are, how we got there, and then what happens next. So it was a lot of just explaining like the process, the different processes for the elementary and the region budget, and the different meetings and decisions that got us to where we are, and then what happens next with the town council and as well as the other 4 towns for the region. There were questions that we tried to answer from members of the public as well as members of the league, and it was a pretty good meeting overall. Deb,
A pretty what meeting? I'm sorry.
just a pretty good meeting.
Oh.
People seemed very engaged. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deb.
Just generally speaking, people really engaged and looking for connections to what's going on in the schools and how they can support the work there, especially around the budget.
So maybe the paper got it wrong, or there was a change of plan. I think it said that you were going to be talking about DEI initiatives or something. So
yeah, we did not talk about DEI initiatives. Yeah. I think the Judy Brooks series does focus on DEI initiatives, and I think when we were first invited, there might have been a description of something having to do with DEI, and then I notified them and said that's not really what we're gonna
Okay.
So maybe that it was late to correct the item in the paper.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I guess there's one more update. Again, I didn't really attend much of it, but there was a finance committee meeting today, and they discussed the budget. And Paul submitted a memo that I can send if you want to attach it, or if not, I can just tell you where it is, about budget guideline revisions, where he is in the budgeting process. It sounded like he had completed the budget, but I don't know. Anyway, there's an update on in particular the schools part of the budget. There was extensive discussion about that.
Great. Yeah, if you could let us know where to find that memo, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll send that.
All right. Any other school committee member announcements? Okay, the next item on our agenda is approving minutes, but unfortunately I don't have minutes for us to approve from the March 20th meeting, but I will put that on my list along with tonight's meeting for our next meeting. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's update. Dr. Z is still out on medical leave, and so I believe Megan is here to take her place in giving us the superintendent's update. Megan, are you?
That is accurate. Just give me one moment. So before I get started, Jen already noted it, but Dr. Z is out following a medical procedure. She wanted me to apologize for her for not being able to present tonight. And then for anyone who's curious, it is in her auto response in her email. And I think most people are aware, but if you do need support during her absence, you can contact executive directors, which would be Shannon Bernacchia. I think I pronounced that wrong, but Shannon, Tanya McIntyre, Marta Guevara, or Jen Ortiz. And if you send Dr. Z an email, you'll get a response that lists who you would contact depending on your need. And then if you have scheduling or admin needs while she's out, you can contact me. I don't believe that I'm trying to see if I can present the PowerPoint that I have.
Let me see if I can give you permission to share. Huh. Is Nibby still there? I seem to have lost my privilege.
If not, I can just read off it. It's very short, and I'm making sure it's on board docs. I realized I accidentally put it in the executive section again.
Oh, okay. Sure. If you could do that, that'd be great. Sorry, I don't know what's happening with my.
It says you're the meeting host, Jennifer.
It was. But hold on.
Just bear with us for a minute.
I do see that it's recording. I seem to have even lost my participants panel. I mean, I'm in the wrong way. Oh, there we go. That's better. Okay, well, now I can see if I can turn on sharing.
Oh, I think I figured it out.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Great. So you won't see me, I don't think, but you should be able to see my screen. This is going to be a very brief superintendent's update about some of the things happening in our Amherst schools. I'm just going to start by going over our district priorities again: student safety and well-being, healing and stabilization, and data and accountability for equity. Here's some recaps of things that are happening inside the Amherst classrooms this week. In Crocker, students had a variety of assemblies and guest speakers attend, including one who did a presentation on Indigenous culture. At Wildwood, students learned about the story of Zeus during a library reading and presentation. And at Fort River, we had the UMass Lion dance team came and they gave a demonstration for all of our students and staff at Fort River. I believe if you go to the district social media, there's more pictures of that event as well. Here's just a list of some upcoming events. Part of the reason that the update this week is rather short is our April break is coming up next week, the 18th through the 25th. Actually, I believe starting this Friday. And then there's a variety of other trips happening at each of our schools. Another one that I would like to highlight specifically that we'll be partnering on is the Walk, Bike, and Roll to School Day, which is on May 7th. And I think we hope to provide more info on that moving forward. And then, as Dr. Z always does, I'm going to end with a quick quote: "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." I know it was very brief, but if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to try my best to answer them.
Thank you, Megan. Sarah?
Yeah, I saw a date for Crocker Farms moving up.
Oh,
ceremony.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure the other two schools will have those as well. So if you can just share those dates with us when they're available.
Yes, of course. I think there was like maybe one or two more things to finalize, and then we plan to share all of those out publicly.
Right.
And I'll make sure they get sent to school committee as well.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Megan.
Yep.
Our next agenda item is warrants, and I have posted warrants to that agenda item on board docs. After that, we have accepting gifts, but we don't have any gifts that I am aware of. So moving on to new and continuing business, our first agenda item in this section is a presentation on the Amherst Early Education Center. And we have Elizabeth Burns, the director of the center, here to talk with us. Thank you so much for coming, Elizabeth.
For having me. Megan, I don't know if you're able to present or share your screen, or if I need to do that to show the presentation that I put together.
I can, if you just give me
Okay,
one
that would
minute.
be, yeah, that would be perfect.
And I just wanted to start by saying, Elizabeth, that at our last meeting, Sarah Marshall suggested this as an agenda item to have you come and present to us. And I myself, like, my daughter went to Crocker Farm from K through 6, and I know that the Early Education Center exists, but I don't know that much about it. Like, I know there's a special ed aspect, but I don't know like really anything other than like what I've absorbed from hearing from people over the years. So I thought it was a great idea. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, hello, everyone. Just a very quick, concise about me. My background is as a school psychologist, and I'm a former assistant principal and former school principal. This is my 5th year. It feels like my 2nd year, but it's my 5th year here at the Amherst Early Education as the preschool administrator. I'm incredibly excited to have this opportunity. I was hoping I would get this chance, and it also feels like a little bit of pressure only because there's so much to share about the preschool. It's definitely a complex, multifaceted, ever-evolving community of incredibly talented staff who've been around before I started working here. So I hope I represent them well, and I have so much to say. So I tried to just sort of boil it down to a small presentation and then to leave some time for questions as you might have it then. Thank you so much, Megan. So yeah, one of the things that I did want to kind of talk about, if we can go to the next slide, I just put these pictures up to remind myself is that, you know, while we share a building with Crocker Farm, we're sort of like somewhat of a standalone school or program. I mean, we are and we aren't. So we aren't because we do share some staff. We, we share the lovely school nurse, Savannah, the special ed secretary, we share. And then we also are really lucky in the preschool because I know a lot of preschools across Massachusetts don't have access to specials, Mr. James and Miss Lincoln. And, while I work alone in a lot of ways as an administrator in the preschool, I also have my SSO colleagues, and Derek and Alicia are two colleagues that I can rely on for advice, for collaboration. They're just an extra person to bounce ideas off of, or people to bounce ideas off of, which I appreciate, as well as Edwin and Kathy in the front office. So I do have the benefit of being in Crocker Farm, but we are also, we're not necessarily part of Crocker Farm in the sense that we meet the needs of children who are zoned to go to Wildwood, Fort River, Crocker Farm, and we also meet the needs of a small percentage of Pelham students who have IEPs and who are preschool aged. And the other thing I wanted to touch on in terms of us being standalone is just to give you an idea that we have our own staff meetings, our own improvement plan for the preschool, our own professional development, some of which has been around, as you know, becoming, getting the seal of excellence from Welcoming Schools, working on trauma training. We've worked with the Hitchcock Center around outdoor learning. So we have a lot of our own initiatives. I evaluate the teachers office here, and we have our own budget, those sorts of things. So our communication with families. So in some sense, we are like our own little school within a school. Yeah, you can. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jennifer.
Just give me for a second. I'm just going to ask members to be sure to mute if you're not talking because we're getting a little background noise. Thank you.
Sorry.
Can you pass it on to the next one, Megan, please? I did want to share our vision and mission. When I first started in the program, I gave staff the opportunity to sit down one-to-one or in small groups with me to talk about the things that they love about the program that I was inheriting and that they wanted to keep and they wanted me to nurture and help move forward, as well as next steps and hopes for the program. We were able to come up with plans for PD, for the focus that we wanted for the program. And one of the things that came up often was being part of Crocker Farm, but being separate from Crocker Farm and forming our own identity. That one came up as a theme quite often. So we did a lot of work together where we gave ourselves a name, the Amherst Early Education Center, a logo, and together we developed the vision and mission. So this is our vision. And you can pass it on to the next one. Thank you. In our mission, and I won't read. I was going to read them out, but I won't. But I do want to just mention that the themes that came up often as we were developing these were that the team wanted to talk about inclusivity in our mission and our vision and mission. That they wanted to talk about this being a safe place where all children truly feel and families feel that they belong and that it's theirs. We wanted to talk about social emotional learning. We wanted children to love school and to feel they could thrive there. Really setting them up for a future of success as they move on through the grades. We also wanted to focus on accessibility and equality and equity, and really at the end of it, you could say we just wanted everyone out there to know that our goal is for any child to feel that they can be successful here. I have many amazing staff, so I want to be careful about shouting out to individuals, but one thing that one of my amazing teachers, Sarah Cohen, has said multiple times is that the biggest goal for her is that children learn to come into school and love it each day. Obviously we do, and she does much, much more than that every day, but that's the first step for us is for children to learn to love school and feel safe there. Thank you. So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit. When I was asked to present, one of the things that came up was to talk about a day in the life and just a little bit about the program. And so I wanted to take it back a little bit and talk about the main purpose of why the preschool program is here in Amherst. And I did take some exact language from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education around the law and early childhood special education services. But if you move on to the next slide, Megan, I sort of I sort of boiled it down to some of the main points, which are what is the difference between, we have many really nice community preschools and daycares here in Amherst in the area. And families will also often come and say, oh, I need longer hours for daycare. And so it's really important for us to express that while we do provide a type of daycare because children are in our care while their parents are off at work or doing what they need to do, that we have a different purpose as well. And so I wanted to talk about the difference between a community preschool or daycare and a public special education preschool program, which is what we are here. So our primary purpose is to meet the needs of students with disabilities who are 3 to 5 years old and who need specially designed instruction. So like a special education classroom of which we have 5 that I'll talk about. And most of the children also get therapeutic services such as occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, PT, vision, hearing. And this is also that they can access FAPE or free appropriate public education. So it's different in the sense that we have to look at the individual needs of these learners with IEPs and meet all of their needs. We are a legally mandated program. And a lot of conversation, I think, in the community, which I understand why, and even maybe in school committee meetings, is around tuition and peer partners. So I wanted to take it back to our primary purpose. We are really lucky that we can have peer partners. And the reason that we invite peer partners to the program is because we do believe in inclusive education. And also so we can maintain ratios that are set out by DESE. So preschool inclusive or integrated classrooms have to have at least one more child without an IEP than children with. So most preschool classrooms across Massachusetts, inclusive classrooms, generally they have 15 children, 8 without IEPs and 7 with. There can be some different compositions, but that's a general rule of thumb, and that's the rule of thumb that we use here. Can move on to the next slide, please. So a little bit about the families that we work with. I think often we look at how many children attend preschool here each day and think that that's the number of students we serve. But at the moment, and actually when I made this slide, and it's changing every day, there's more, there were 104 students and families that I'm working with. 83 of the students are enrolled, so they're currently either coming to preschool here or getting services. So we meet the needs of children who drop in for community-based services, maybe for some physical therapy services or occupational therapy services. We have 39 students with identified disabilities and IEPs that attend the program each day. And then we have at this very moment, we have 30 peer partners that attend our preschool program. And I'll talk a little bit because I know there was some curiosity around tuitions. And so I'll talk a little bit about that because some pay tuition, some do not. I'm also at the moment, or when I made the slide, as I said, working with 21 additional students and their families, 2 children who are moving into the district, and 19 developmental evaluations that are in process at the moment that have been requested by families. And then at the same time, we have families calling each day interested in having a developmental screening as opposed to an evaluation for their child. I'm working with families who are enrolling next year around tuition rates and contracts and visits, those sorts of things. But one thing I really, really wanted to share is that there is an ever-evolving nature to a public preschool program. It's very complex. Each day, a student could move in, a pediatrician could call, a family could call, and we are constantly adjusting and evolving and redesigning to meet the needs of the children that show up at our door each day, who we're very, very happy to have here. And I do want to just say before I move on, I want to take a step back and mention that sometimes I talk about numbers and needs, and I think about if families are watching or even children or older children, and sometimes we talk about needs in a way that I want to make sure that all the families and children know that children with special education needs, they're why I'm here and they're the joy of what we do each day. So sometimes it sounds like they're a number or a need or a burden, and that's definitely not the case. They are the best part of what we do. So I just wanted to put that out there. Can we move on to the next one, Megan? Thanks. A little bit about the students that come here each day. We have, as I said, students with IEPs who have one or more of a combination of the disabilities listed. We have peer partners, and you know, a lot of what I wanted to focus on that we are a special education preschool program. I also wanted to comment on our peer partners. So our peer partner population is probably somewhat different than you might see in a community preschool. And I say that because we are a preschool where all students are welcome and belong. We are an affordable, and there are other affordable options, but we are one of the affordable options for families as we have a sliding scale. And there are also to be careful about exactly any identifying information, but in the Pioneer Valley, there are preschools who, for a variety of complicated reasons, need to ask children to leave their preschools. And so those aren't children always, or often they're not children who need an IEP or have a disability, but might be going through a traumatic experience, might have some trauma. They might have some behavioral needs that aren't disability related, but that are complicated. And we are an option for those students. And then quite unfortunately, I have to share that there are also some daycares, preschools, not all of them, but some that have also shared that they can't always meet the needs of children who are learning English. And so those students are, of course, very, very welcome here. And so I do just want to share that our peers also need support in different ways that we are, that we provide and are able to provide and are happy to provide. And sometimes those supports can extend to, we've even had peer partners who've needed, for a time, some one-to-one paraeducator support because of some things that they're going through. So just to give a picture of our students, they're also absolutely amazing and fun to spend the day with. Thanks, Megan. I know there was a question about our tuition, and because we have to talk about tuition scales with the school committee, and that had been discussed at some recent meetings. And so I wanted to share a little bit about who pays tuition. Students with IEPs are not charged tuition. I think most people know that, but just to clarify that they are provided with a free appropriate public education beginning at the age of 3. And so this just shows that we have about 30% are able to access free tuition based on their income. 20% pay full tuition, and then the way it works is families are all given an application for free or reduced tuition. Some families say, I won't qualify, that's okay. Some say, I don't want to apply, and that's also okay. They don't want to share that information, that's okay too. And so they pay full tuition. And then 50% pay reduced tuition. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like when looking at the scales. And I do want to mention that, I know we have a new scale that you approved, thank you. Our tuition is still, quite a bit less than some other preschools in the area. So it is nice to know that families have that option for an affordable preschool. I know that you all, at least I was told, Dr. Z mentioned that you want to hear a little bit about our staff. So I prepared some slides about them. And I think the first one is about our paraeducators, the most important. So we have 16 paraeducators at the moment in the program. Next school year, we will be reduced by 1 is my understanding. So we'll have 15 next year. And I wanted to sort of touch base a little bit on what they do. And I know I have limited time, so I'm trying to fit it all in, and they do so much more than what I'm going to say. Our paraeducators are incredibly talented. I'm very lucky. It's really hard to put it all on one slide. They keep our program running. They become experts on students with complex needs. They do research, they ask questions, they get to know the students, and I often rely on paras when a child is dysregulated or having a very difficult moment, I'll look to them for, sort of what might work, what might help, because they know the ins and outs of these students and really care for them. We have paraeducators who provide translation and interpretation services. We're really grateful, very lucky to have Sylvia Sherwood is one of the paras that works in our program. She's worked here for quite a while, is my understanding, but definitely before I was here. And she's a trained interpreter, and she I can't explain how much she does for us, in the sense that we have children coming in and families coming in, and to have someone who can speak to them in Spanish eases their mind. It lets them know their child is safe. It helps that child on day one, and it's I can't say enough about how important those sorts of things that paraeducators do out of the kindness of their heart for the future success of these children. I could go on and on about several of them, but I don't want to take too much time. They assist therapists, they ride vans, they help comfort kids, multitude of things. But I do want to mention that we do have about 10 to 12 students who require one-to-one support or supervision for a combination of these things. Generally, it's not usually just one of them. So there's an understanding of our number of paras. As well as just the nature of preschool age children. They need comforting, they need reassurance, they need help washing their hands, opening their food, being safe. They need, sometimes they just need someone, they need a cuddle or a lap to sit on. In our program, we have 25 children who need diapering, who are not toilet trained. So that also obviously requires a lot of trained caring hands. And some of that is because we have a higher number than a community preschool would of children with special needs who might be a little bit delayed in their diapering. And our pairs are spread across our 5 classrooms, which are on the next slide. So we have 5 classrooms at the moment, and these are the 5 wonderful teachers. I just want to sort of comment on what each of them do, because they all do something very different. Sarah Cohen, who I mentioned earlier, is our Preschool 1 teacher. Preschool 1 is a substantially separate classroom, it means it's a smaller classroom with children who require direct, intensive, individualized learning, teaching and learning. Sarah has a group in the morning, and she does amazing things with JC Armenti from Preschool 4. Absolutely amazing things around reverse inclusion, having peer partners come into the room when children are regulated and ready. She also works really hard in the afternoon with Preschool 4 with JC. They work really well together to include those students, to have inclusion time in the afternoons. And Sarah is also beginning a Preschool 1 because of the need afternoon classroom. So she's quite busy. Diana Demers-Slovin teaches our Preschool 2 classroom, which is a morning inclusion classroom. Diana works part-time, so she runs a morning classroom and is also busy. As soon as her children leave, she's helping with evaluations, developmental evaluations for children in the community. Preschool 3 is a full-day classroom for children who have at least 2 or more related services like PT, OT, speech and language, vision, hearing, those sorts of things for children the year before kindergarten. So she runs a full day classroom from 8:30 to 2:30, and also occasionally helps out with developmental evaluations, as we have many of those. JC Armenti runs Preschool 4, which runs both an AM session, and then she flips things over, has her lunch quickly, and runs a PM session for children. And those are both inclusion classrooms. And as I said, she has some children who are in Preschool 1 in the morning join her Preschool 4 classroom. Johanna Hedeman runs an AM classroom, inclusion classroom, and she does the vast majority of our developmental evaluations. We've had a lot of them this year. She's very busy running around the community, having children in to do evaluations with them. So that kind of gives you an idea of their weeks and days, which are very busy and full of students. Thanks, Megan. So we have some related service professionals that we work with as well in the program. Dr. Emily Dannon is our physical therapist. We do share her with the elementary some, but she works heavily in preschool. And Shweta Krishnaswamy is our amazing occupational therapist who works a little bit with the Cocker Farm Elementary as well. Danielle Kadenoff, who we have only for a little bit longer before she retires, is our speech and language pathologist. We did have 2 speech and language pathologists, but Denise Paquin, who's also amazing, retired. And this year we've been contracting a great speech and language pathologist, but she's not part of our permanent team. She's a contractor. I didn't have a picture of Dr. Holvey, who's been working with us a little bit this year. She's, I think, maybe 0.3 with us, but she's an important part of our team. And she's doing psychological evaluations for children who are in our program or who are being referred to the program. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. And Jen Menard is our BCBA or behavior specialist that we share with Crocker Farm. I know she used to be full-time with Crocker Farm, and due to staffing and financial reasons, we share with Crocker Farm now a BCBA behavior specialist instead, as opposed to having our own. And we have a lot of need for her in our program, I will say that. But we have her for 1.5 days when the children are here, and then we have a day of consult with her. Thank you. All right, Megan, you can take it to the next slide. Thank you. So I did just want to fit in a little bit of helpful data because it's very easy to see the numbers of children that I talked about that we're working with, over 100 families right now, to see our staff and to know that those teachers and related service providers meet the needs of the children who come in for therapies or in our classrooms, those sorts of things. But they do a lot more than that. As I said before, their jobs are really complicated and complex. This year we've had, I put plus because I got a new referral today, 64 evaluations, developmental evaluations. 43 of those were initial evaluations requested by community members, either a large majority from the Department of Public Health Early Intervention Services for children who are going to turn 3. Some of those referrals are from our families in the community, pediatricians, community preschools or daycares, or our own staff referring some of our peer partners. That happens too. And I wanted to comment on this because every evaluation that we do or that is requested is just such exercise in care. These professionals, they spend a lot of time with the family, learning about their children, observing them at play groups or at their community daycares, interviewing their community daycares or preschools, doing standardized assessments with them, playing with them, getting to know them. They then walk away from that and they write a comprehensive evaluation report that's shared with the families. And we then meet with the families to go through. And I have so much to share. I'm trying to slow myself down because this is so important what they do. And I want to make sure I really can describe it thoroughly. I mentioned Dr. Holvey, who works with us as a school psychologist, and we're getting more and more families who suspect that their child might be on the autism spectrum. And as you might know, there are very long wait lists via medical professionals, developmental evaluations, private clinics to find out if your child might be on the spectrum and to get services. And so more and more we're getting families who aren't able to get those evaluations in a timely manner. And we do have a talented school psychologist who's trained to provide that diagnosis and to look into that. And so, as you can imagine, the care that goes in time that goes into these types of evaluations when a parent is asking for the first time if their child might have a disability or might need some more support at school. And those evaluations turn into IEP meetings. This year we're at this point scheduled 104. There'll be more, I'm sure. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think we might have, I might be wrong, but this has come up before. We might have the most IEP meetings of any school or program in the district. We have a lot of IEP meetings in preschool. We do a lot of IEP meetings. And IEP meetings are important. And we have them for initial eligibility determinations, for reevaluations, parents call and teams call reconvenes. We transition children from early intervention to preschool, and from preschool, feels like a short time later, to kindergarten, and to 4 different elementary schools that we need to meet with. And, sometimes IEP meetings are shorter. A reconvene might be 30 or 45 minutes. Sometimes IEP meetings take 3 hours. And so my professional team is part of these meetings with us. And so, and again, they do take a lot of care. And, when you hear meeting, it sounds like a group of people sitting together, just talking and sharing facts. And there's a lot of emotions and empathy and feelings and also excitement and happiness in these meetings. But they're really important and heavy work that this team does. So I wanted to share just a little bit of that helpful data so everyone understood what they do. Thank you, Megan. I did want to share, we did a recent family survey, and I wanted to share a few of the results. As you know, I told you all that we really prioritize social emotional learning. It's part of our vision and mission. And this felt like something important to share because we're very proud. Unfortunately, since I made the slides, we've had more responses, but when I was making them, we had 24 responses at that time. So it was really nice to see that families are seeing that we're teaching children how to identify their emotions. And then the next one is about expressing their emotions. This one was my favorite because, again, it goes back to what the teachers say, that they want the children to feel they belong. They want the children to love school, and we want their families to know how much we care about their kids and enjoy them. And so it was nice to see that that's shining through to the parents and what the teachers and the staff have to say. Moving along to a day in the life, I know that that was another question, is sort of what a day in the life looks like for preschool students. So it's hard to encapsulate after everything I've said, because it is so individualized, which is a lot of that really, really heavy work that our staff do to make the program work for children with vastly different needs and interests. But just to touch a little bit on the fact that every class does some form of a meeting or circle time. And that looks different in every room. In Preschool 1 in Sarah Cohen's room, it might look like a story and really exciting videos, and them each holding their own book in their hands so that they can access that. There is choice time, where children are practicing sharing, taking turns, problem solving, risk taking, their imagination. Everyone gets outdoor play unless it's absolutely way, way too hot or way, way too cold or absolute downpour, but we get out there every day otherwise. There's centers and tabletop activities where a lot of learning happens. We eat. There's read alouds where we enjoy books. And as I said, we get PE music. And Preschool 1 and 4 have music therapy with our music therapist, Rusty. Thanks, Megan. I wanted to show just a few pictures that show different things happening throughout the preschool. We've got some graphic practice in Johanna's room where children are learning letters and preparing for kindergarten. We have one of our amazing para educators, Miguel, who is getting his hair done in the middle picture. We're doing some pretend play there. We have some children playing outside. I'm sure the 6th grade, I know they don't always love it, but we love to play all the instruments outside, all the things we make them into instruments and music. So some sharing happening outside and some music. We have some children doing some art and some activities with letters. So a lot of different things happen in a day. I also wanted to highlight some students here, and I wanted to really make sure I protected their privacy and their faces, but some students that, their preschool day looks a little bit different than what we think about when we think about preschool. And some of the individualized accommodations and supports and tricks that the staff do with these children to make sure they stay regulated and are able to access the preschool. So we have all sorts of equipment, speech generating devices, sensory equipment, and what each child needs is so different from day to day. I wanted to share some of that as well. I would feel very irresponsible if I missed the opportunity to also share with you our growing need and expanding needs in the preschool. And this has been a topic since, I think before I was here, I've heard, and it's definitely been a topic each year since I've started. Our numbers continue to grow, and actually next year, we are anticipated to have the highest start number of children with disabilities and IEPs since I've been here. Actually didn't put 2020 in because it was such an unusual start time. So I didn't think it was accurate data. But I thought it would be, as I said, a missed opportunity to not share that our needs are growing, and our space, our staff, our budget, those sorts of things in preschool haven't changed in quite a long time. And we're very proud of what we do. And I think it really is a fantastic program. And I invite you to come visit if you ever have the opportunity and you haven't. And I would very much hate to see what we're able to give children shrink, as opposed to seeing our program expand and grow with the needs of this town and of our young children. I know you all know, but early intervention has been proven time and time again in research to work and to be one of the most important times to intervene. And we've heard before that it becomes more expensive and the needs can grow if we don't meet those needs here. So I look forward to working together with you all in the future to talk about how we can grow our preschool to meet the needs. That I have so much more to say, but that's what I have for tonight. And I wondered if anyone has any questions.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a wonderful summary and overview of the preschool. It's clear it's a really special place, and I feel really fortunate that we have the Amherst Early Education Center in our town. Sarah, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. That's fascinating. And my thanks to your whole staff for the really important work they're doing, that you're doing. So the preschool does not meet on Fridays, and I'm wondering why that is. Is that a limit? Is it a financial limitation? It sounds like the need is there. So why not 5 days a week?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And it was something that was new to me coming to this area. And it seems that I learned that other preschools in the area have a similar model. And it's not a financial need. It comes down to time. So because the teachers, it comes down to contractual time and their need in the contract for planning time. Also our high numbers of evaluations and IEP meetings, and not being able to meet all those, regulatory compliance and the mandatory timelines, as well as, which if Jen Ortiz was here, she could answer better than me, the exact contractual reason that the teachers, because they're with children all day without planning time, that they need that Friday time.
Does that mean, for example, your staff is there on Fridays and you're planning together or meeting about individual children, or?
Exactly.
Okay.
They're planning, they're having consultation meetings, which are part of the children's IEPs, and we're holding IEP meetings. So a variety of things are happening on a Friday.
Got it.
We do work on a Friday, yes.
Deb, you're making noise.
I'm going to go to Shannon, who has her hand raised.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I was allowed to intervene, but I just wanted to clarify that we're not reducing a para at the preschool. I know you mentioned that, Elizabeth, and I'm sorry if that wasn't conveyed accurately to you. We're changing the funding source to the preschool revolving fund, so you'll still have the 16 staff. So just so you know that.
Well, that's wonderful news, Shannon. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Yes, those budget documents can be very confusing. Bridget, do you have a question?
Well, I just wanted first just to thank you. Like the presentation that you gave was filled with so much love and care, but also demonstrated the intense skillfulness needed by your staff. And I have had personal experience with the Crocker Farm preschool, and I'm just very enthused to know that it's continuing in such a strong manner. But I know that you were the leader in our district in bringing forward the Welcoming Schools program, and I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Um, So when I met with the team and we sort of started to think about some of our goals, one of the things that came up a lot was, again, inclusivity and ensuring all families and all students could see themselves in this program and belonged. And we talked about it from several different angles. And welcoming schools had been something that I had been interested in doing in a school in the past. And I thought, this could be a wonderful opportunity. And as you all know, at that time, there was a lot more funding out there with COVID type money. We all call it COVID money. I don't know the exact funding source. And so I spoke with the superintendent at the time, as well as my supervisor, Faye Brady, at that time, about getting the funding for welcoming schools. And the staff here was really committed to that idea and excited about it. And so I think we did the work over the course of 3 school years of doing all of the trainings. But we also met together as a committee once a month to talk about the different initiatives and the benchmarks of quality have different areas that you need to check off. So because there was funding out there, we were able to do a lot of those things. We revamped our entire library to make sure that we had not just stories about different families, but great storylines that weren't, the focus wasn't that it was 2 dads or 2 moms or however it was set up, but that was just how the story played out. So we were able to, I think because people were really committed to the idea of inclusivity for the program and thinking about all those different angles, the staff we had huge buy-in right away. And because of the timing of COVID and funding, we were able to pay for it all. So it was a really fun journey. I think people were really excited and proud, and I definitely see the things that we learned being put into practice every day.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Deb, you have
Did
your
that
hand.
answer the question, Bridget? Okay.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for this. It's always nice to see kids doing great stuff and dedicated staff. I always have questions about mechanics of things. So you mentioned that the needs are growing within the district or overall. How does that work in terms of wait lists and providing a state mandated education to these students who need them both in district and from other areas? I guess in particular, what happens when we have a limited capacity to provide for those students, those seats for special education students, and there's another community member that has a need for a spot? Are there situations where students from other communities don't get to return the following year?
So I'm not 100% sure if I understand. So in terms of peer partners, we have had wait lists historically.
Right.
In terms of children who have a disability or identified special need and require an IEP, we need to meet their needs, no matter the number or the space. So that's about us getting creative and finding creative ways. And I think why I wanted to share about our numbers tonight is because over time, our worry is that we don't want our creativity to turn into reducing hours or giving the children less so that we can meet all of the children with disabilities needs. Can you just clarify for me about the children from different communities?
Well, so there's 5 classrooms. So there's spaces for 35 students with special needs.
So there are spaces for there are, sorry, I have to do the math in my head. So we have 4 inclusion classrooms. So that's in the morning, that's 28 spaces.
Okay.
Then we have our substantially separate classroom, which is usually around 5 to 6 students in it.
Uh-huh.
We also have a classroom in the afternoons that can take 7 children. That's an afternoon session.
Okay. So what happens when we have more Amherst students than those 41 spaces? Did I do the math right? 41 spaces.
So at the moment, we have gotten lucky that we've made it through every year with maybe only having to, you can fill classrooms over the number if you need to. If the ratio becomes that you have more children with IEPs than children without, you have to get a waiver from DESE. We don't want to get to that point, and I think that's where I've been working with SSO and working with central office to talk about solutions for the future. You know, we've talked about all sorts of things from figuring out if we can add another afternoon class. At the moment, our staff either are part-time, so they can't run an afternoon class, or they already have children in the afternoon, or they're doing evaluations.
Yeah.
So figuring out creative ways that we can use internal staff to make another afternoon class. We've talked about play groups. We've talked about, as I said, you know, IEPs are written for next year, but in the future, reducing what we're able to give children. And the answer for me would be to figure out a way to open another classroom or 2 classrooms, but really I would start with at least another classroom. I mean, that would be my hope for the future to grow the program with our needs. Obviously, that comes with a variety of questions. Where would we put that classroom? Where would we find the funding to hire another teacher and paraeducators? We'd have to, you know, increase our materials budget, for example. What about the strain and burden on transportation? So these are questions that we're all asking and, you know, hoping to find solutions to, but of course it all comes with financial implications that we need support around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any,
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deb.
just any summarizing documents about future needs? I will ask Dr. Z, but I'm asking you as well because our town council is interested in projecting expenses out further than the years that we have in front of us. So that's important information for us to have available. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can absolutely share that. And I do just want to reiterate that it is complicated with preschool because projecting out children who aren't born yet is really,
Yeah.
And not knowing their developmental trajectory. And we do our best guesses, and the Department of Public Health helps us with those guesses as well. But it is a whole different place, and it is a whole different kind of complex process for us. But absolutely, I'm already been sharing with my colleagues and you know, those in central office, sort of the numbers of referrals. And I will say that I showed on the chart the projected numbers, which are looking more like starting with, and I, you know, as I was doing the math in my head when I was sharing with you, I think that when Shannon mentioned the thing about the para, I'm going to be honest, I got excited but rattled. I was so excited that I sort of lost my train of thought. And I know there's 40 IEP spots at the moment. But starting the year with 35 IEP slots full, and the Department of Public Health telling us they're already going to refer 19 more children, I do have a worry about what's going to happen even next year.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thought is to get creative next year, but how much longer can we get creative before we have to start cutting what we can offer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to give the last question to Sarah, and then we need to move on.
Thank you. Can you speak, Elizabeth, a little bit about the preparing the children and the families, I suppose, and maybe the kindergarten teachers, the transition from preschool to kindergarten?
Yeah.
What that encompasses.
Yeah, so around this time of the year, I start making my list for myself of the kindergarten transitions for next year, because I start thinking about them the year before. And then in August, September, I really start preparing. And so I work together with SSO, specifically Joanne Smith, who's really helpful in helping me put together pre-K to K transition lists so that the incoming schools, or the receiving schools, sorry, have an idea of the students that will be coming to them and joining them. I meet with the ETLs and assistant principals of those buildings to start talking to them about the students that they're going to be receiving. And we start working with families. So some of our families, you know, we explain the options. Some of our children are going to go to kindergarten with a low level of supports. Some might need a paraeducator support in kindergarten. Some might be, you know, we might be referring to one of our specialized programs like Building Blocks, AIMS, ILC, and we start talking about those early on. We start thinking about if children might need evaluations to help us determine the best fit for them and the services that they'll require in kindergarten. And we start having kindergarten transitions, believe it or not, in December. Sometimes we start a kindergarten transition and we get into the meeting with the family and the team and realize, you know what, we actually need more information, and it turns into a second kindergarten transition down the road. So yeah, I think it's a lot of communicating with the family about what the options are and what kindergarten supports and needs, what kindergarten supports are available, and how kindergarten looks different from preschool. Working with those assistant principals so that they get to know who's coming and their needs, and making sure we have the time to plan. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, but quick follow-up. I know we need to move on, but so do the kindergarten teachers get to meet the child or family ahead of time? I'm sure there's a big file, but they are also prepared for the
Yes.
child and the child's, you know, para or whatever services or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a yes and a no. I will also say the related service providers work with the receiving related service providers so that they know about the child. The children are all invited to developmental screening, so it might look different depending on the child's needs and profile. So children are invited to the developmental screenings where the kindergarten teachers are there, and so they're meeting the individual children, and the children get to visit the school. I will say that my understanding is that class lists are often made over the summer, and paraeducator hiring decisions and assignments are made over the summer. So we don't necessarily have them, they don't visit their classroom teacher and meet them, but there are some of our children who do need to make an extra visit, maybe even with me. I've had students with me visit a kindergarten and see the different rooms, what a kindergarten room looks like. If they are going to a specialized program, then yes, there is meeting of teachers ahead of time, like ILC or AIMS. And if they're a child who's accessing extended year services, they might spend some time with their teacher from that program during the summer. So it's a bit of a yes and a no answer, but we do as much of that preparation ahead as possible. Social stories, visits, all those sorts of things.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We really appreciate you coming and you giving your presentation, and keep up the wonderful work. And please say thank you to your staff for us as well.
I will. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.
So next on our agenda, we have Shannon and the Q3 budget update.
Okay. Should I present my screen?
Yeah, could you?
Okay. Could you just let me know if you could see it okay?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So I just want to start off by saying overall for Q3 for Amherst, we are in good shape. We are at approximately 66% of our total budget, which is, I guess, right around where we would want to be. The first thing is our payroll accounts. They're slightly, our salaries are slightly less than where we would anticipate them to be. Part of that is staff turnover or staff that positions we weren't able to fill and we had to contract out for. But overall, it's in good shape. And between now and Q4, I'll ask for a budget transfer to transfer some of the funds left in payroll to the expense accounts to help offset this some. But they're tracking okay. In our expense lines is when you see some of the larger overages, and our district-wide regular ed slash other, that's at 112%. It's over the budget by $3,910. For some reason, that's still shaded green. I just forgot to change that box colored to a different color. But that is our homeless and foster care transportation, which has been a lot higher than it has been in previous years. And that's not something that we really know how much we're going to have each year. It's based on need, and we're required to provide it. But looking back, when I was looking at this for the prior fiscal years, it is significantly higher. I'm sure a portion of that is the increase of transportation costs, but there is also an increase in student need for homeless and foster care transportation. Um, for district-wide special education, this is significantly higher than what we have budgeted, and we did already apply the full amount of circuit breaker and IDA funds that we planned on supporting this. But we had a large influx of students with special needs that we were not aware we were going to receive during the year. And this was, when in speaking with SSO, this was an unprecedented amount. They're not sure they've ever seen this much in a year, and so that has contributed to it, as well as services that we needed to contract out for that we didn't fill a position. That all has built up this expense to be as high as it is. Um, then we move down to our English language education, which is also high. It's over by $2,200, and when I was looking into this a little bit more, we have some translation costs that are contracted out to translate documents and things of that sort. And that is, when I looked at our year to date spending versus what we still have encumbered, I suspect that encumbrance is going to shrink, that we're not going to actually use all of that. So I don't think we'll be over in this category come end of year based on what we've spent so far, and we're already by Q3. For our facilities, this has been continuously high with the building maintenance needs and contracting out for HVAC and plumbing as needed, and the higher cost of our custodial supplies. I do want to let you know, though, that the director of operations, Mike Gallo, and I are meeting bi-weekly, and we're really looking towards figuring out how we can get these costs controlled. And I hope that we see a big change in FY26 in our facility account lines. Um, then we have, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over one. Our administration lines. That one is over, and there's a bunch of things that go into here. Our biggest fees that have increased this year are our legal fees. We have spent way more than we have budgeted in legal fees, and we've contracted out for some services too, but that I don't think is our real tipping point here. We are working with a consultant for the sixth grade transition into the middle school to create the sixth grade academy, and also the merging of the two elementary schools and what that's going to look like programmatically. And so that's listed on here as part of the expense of reasoning why it's higher. I guess that's a portion because it wasn't originally budgeted, but I know here that a lot of it was around our increase for our legal fees and some of the audits that we recently did. Um, then, if I could just answer the questions at the end. Okay. And then skipping down to transportation, this transportation line, it's not that we did not project correctly for our regular transportation and things of that sort busing. The reason why this line is over is because we had to purchase two buses. They were not brand new. They were used buses, and it was we didn't have a capital expense or a capital line to put this to, and it was urgent. Um, per the state school bus inspector, uh, two of the buses that we had were going to be decommissioned, so we purchased the used buses. It was about 111,000 total for both of them, and we weren't going to have the electric buses in time by the time we needed them. So this happened at the beginning of the year, and that's why we're seeing, as we spend our actual contracted transportation services, um, coupled with this expense, we're seeing it over now. But the driver of that is the purchase of the buses. Um, and so, one other thing I just want to note is we did have, I believe it was around 400 or 500,000. I can't remember off the top of my head, that was used for in ESSER to support this budget. We had slightly more ESSER than that when we closed out fiscal 24 into 25, which we had to spend by September 30th. So because of that, it has helped offset our total overall budget and has allowed us not to use as much school choice right now. So we're still on track to save, not use the total school choice, and support that in our FY26 budget as planned. And if there's any more savings where we don't have to use as much so that we can save that for a future year, that would be great, and we'll keep an eye on that. So, Deb, I'll take your question.
Hi, Shannon. Thanks for this. So in terms of some of those unanticipated costs, there is there still space in JCPC to make any of those requests? I'm thinking the school bus, I'm thinking, and then, okay, that's my first question.
So the school bus, I'm not sure. I did at one time. I know there was a big talk around the Crocker Farm fire alarm, and if that could be like, being that we already paid for it, could that be something that the town could cover as a one-time cost? And I did email the town about the buses, but that didn't move ahead any further. I don't know now that we've already bought the bus if that's something that we go to JCPC with. But I did flag it, and I did send it over to the town that if this was a one-time cost they wanted to cover.
Yeah. And also, weren't we supposed to get ARPA funds to help with that sixth grade planning move? I thought we had it, and then we said we weren't going to use it, and I thought they set it aside again.
Yeah, I think the time for that has passed based on their deadlines. And when we voted, when the vote was made to push off the start date for the move, then they no longer were providing us with those funds because there wasn't that continued path forward, and they needed to spend those by a certain date or have it obligated by a specific date. So we did, in JCPC, I did put in a request for funding to support that transition. And Sarah Marshall might remember. I'm blanking on the total dollar amount I had asked for, and then I had asked for an increase, an additional 100,000 in that meeting as well. I was working off of what the previous director of facilities had planned on requesting. I want to say was it 350 and we went to 450. Do you remember, Sarah?
Yes, that is correct. So JCPC will have what should be the final meeting of the year tomorrow, where I think the committee has come to agreement, but we need to formally finish and complete our report. I believe it will have a recommendation for $450,000 for improvements or changes to the middle school to aid in that in accommodating the sixth grade. But these are recommendations and they go to the town manager and then the town manager decides, I guess. And then maybe it all gets voted on by council. Not sure about that, but we are, I expect us to move forward with that request.
Can I
recommendation.
follow up them? Because I know Paul did creative things with ARPA funds in the beginning. He rolled the remaining of it into free cash. And then he used, geez, I mean, it seems a bit like a moving puzzle, but some of the money that he had in free cash that was technically, I guess, originally ARPA funds, he used to pay for something else, and something else was going back into free cash. So I guess I'd encourage somebody to reach back out and make verify that those ARPA funds are no longer available, because unless you think it's a waste of time, because
Yeah, I don't think that they're available. And considering some things that I read in the news with some of those funds being taken away if they weren't already obligated, I don't think it's an option that we have to go to now.
but he that's why he put it in free cash, to obligate it.
Oh, well then I don't know, but I could reach out to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think the hands changed a little bit, but I think that Sarah was next. So I'm going to do Sarah, Irv, and then Bridget.
Yeah, thank you. So there's some alarming numbers here, or maybe really only one, the special ed spending. And I know, we don't have any choice in the matter, but my question for you is, so given the information that this shows us, do we think that we'll be in trouble next year? Or are we taking this increased demand for special ed funds into consideration in the budget we just passed, but has yet to be passed by the town?
Yep. So I met with SSO to create and update our 26 account lines, and it captured these students that we didn't anticipate this year, and all of their out of district placements, which actually is going to go down because a lot of these students move on to the region, which is why we were allowed to decrease one of our out of district transportation and out of district tuition costs by, I believe it was $250, because they're moving up. So they're all taken into account already for FY26. If something new comes in that we didn't plan on, then we might be in a similar situation.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Irv, you're up.
Shannon, you mentioned the legal costs of 250 plus. So the question comes to me is, what portion of that is elementary and what portion of that is for the region?
So I don't believe I said a specific number for the legal costs, but what we do is when we receive a bill that is district wide, we split it out, and we pay it across all 3 districts accordingly. If it's an attorney bill that is specifically to the elementary, then we only charge it to the elementary. Or if it's just region in Amherst, like that's how we split it out. So the costs for here that are represented within our administration line are specifically Amherst portion of those legal fees.
Could you tell me what that portion is? Because I can't see and I don't have it before
Well,
me.
so it's baked into the overall administration line. That's not the only expense, but it's a big driver for our increase. So I could share with you. I don't have it readily available right now, but I could share with you what those total costs are after this meeting.
All right. So just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating, you didn't mention any legal costs at all in this presentation this evening?
Oh no, I did. I didn't say 250.
All right. What number did you use, by the way?
Well, I just said the administration line. It's over by 53,000, but and it's over the budget. So the original budget for administration expenses was 193,000. Our year-to-date expenses with is at 246. So we've paid to date 123,000, and we have encumbered 122,000 that's still left to pay, for a total of 246,000. So that leaves us over budget by 53,000.
All right, and a part of that is the legal expenses.
Yes, that's a big driver for the increase here. And then another portion of that was the consultants that we hired for the sixth grade transition and the merging of the two elementary schools, and some of the audit work that was done.
All right, so I really would appreciate it if you could break that out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give the last question to Bridget.
Thanks. So the first thing I raised my hand for, but other things came to mind since, was just JCPC. Yeah, I think we have consensus on the 450 for the middle school, like the sixth grade academy move. And something that came up in that question that's going to come up next week. So I don't know if you could get that information to us, is about the out years. Are we going to still need two more school buses? And then the second thing on that was that they're going to put it a priority if there's free cash to contribute towards the middle school roof. So there are just some good progress for the schools in that meeting. But question that I had two questions maybe you can follow up with. One is like, what are we doing to bring down the contracted costs? Because last year they were really hurting us as well. And the second one is about the consultant around the move of the schools. And I understand like the new sixth grade academy, that might be some separate stuff, but like, how are the building principals and those folks were working on a plan and developing something before? And I just wondered how they're working with that consultant, and how, like, how much of that could we do in-house? But also like, how are those forces for good working together?
So I'll talk about the transition and the merging of the two schools first. So you're correct. There was a lot of work done already for the sixth grade move. And I compiled all of those documents together. And the merging of the two elementary schools, though, for how that building is going to operate with Wildwood and Fort River and the current programs, how that was not started yet. So the consultant, we just had our kickoff meeting. It was March 31st, I believe, with them and a select group of people, and we have a follow up meeting. I believe it's February or April 22nd, and so they're starting. We put together information that they had requested about the previous study with the sixth graders, and a bunch of data dumps, and we provided that information. And I know one of the consultants, Mary, has started working with Tonya, and we're going to come together on the 22nd as our second meeting to talk about the progress that has been made, and then start to branch out to the principals and the community, whomever needs to be involved, and start to develop that plan. So we haven't gotten that far yet, but that is to come, and they'll certainly be included, and they have to be for this process. So I think with the sixth grade, there was a lot of work to be done. Most of the people that were on that committee that put together those plans are retired or no longer here. And are those plans still what we want to do, because it's been some time since then, and do they financially make the most sense? I'm not sure. So we really have to revisit and um, read it all over again and figure out, is that the best plan to put forth. So the consultants, they're going to help facilitate the work, but they're not necessarily going to do all of the work. It's going to take community input. It's going to take the administration, the principals, district leadership. I'm sure there will be space for teachers and to communicate some information. So that's in the works. So there will certainly be more to come. And when we get there, we will certainly share an update. And I know you said something. What was the other question? JCPC.
About contracting, like ways to bring down contracting costs, like, are there any plans we could do for next year? Is there any way in the negotiations with the unions we can get some of those specialist lines raised? Because in special ed, I know the contracting is costing us a lot.
Yeah, so I think it's a great idea, and I think I mentioned this before for what we did with our tradespeople, and creating the new lane. Um, as far as I know, the negotiations have not yet gone to speak about salary increases. It's been more about contract language. But Kate Holcomb from the business office is representing us at the table there, and I'll certainly be working with her on the back end information and see what we can come up with to help support that, so that maybe if it is higher income, we wouldn't have to contract out, but that is on the agenda. We just haven't gotten there yet in negotiation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. We appreciate your update and all the information. So our next agenda item is future agenda planning. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask if anyone has any ideas for future agenda items to please email me so that we can move on to the next item, which is executive session. So I move that the Amherst School Committee, consider entering executive session in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, with no intent to return to open session. Can I get a second?
I'll second, but I have a question.
Sure, Sarah, go ahead.
Can you tell us here whether we will be discussing litigation or whether it'll be contract negotiation?
It is litigation. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, I vote yes. Deb?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Irv?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Thank you. Executive session is approved. So now we will all go to the executive session Google Meet link, and we will not be returning to open session. Thank you all.
All right.